Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever MonDak Wellness Summit. I am so excited to have you here. It's me, Tanya, Candy. If nobody knows who I am, I'm excited to have you here. So, if you were watching that little commercial I put together, you noticed that I was saying get active in the comments. So, thank you already. Some of you had some comments before we started. Those didn't count. You have to start now. So, every time you put in a comment, it is going to register you for a drawing. So, now I want to thank you for being our tech experiment. So you can guarantee that I'll make some flub ups. And so I thank you all in advance for having grace with me on that. What we have for prizes, we've got some t-shirts. So I'm hoping that the way this will work is that after every presentation, I'll do the drawing. The system won't let you win twice, but if that doesn't work, then I will take down everybody's registration and I will hand draw them tomorrow afternoon sometime. But we've got some t-shirts. We've got some MonDak Summit t-shirts that's got everybody's logo on the back. We've got some calendars. Calendars. Where's my Yeah, there we go. What's really handy about these calendars is I've included in a couple of spots the replay code. So the replay will live on my website, and the calendar gives you a code. And then I've got some fun notepads that there too. They're all MonDak logo. They've got the MonDak on them, and they've got everybody's logo. So those are going to be your swag. And then some of the presentators, I can never say that, are also throwing in stuff, and I don't even know what that's all going to be. So there's going to be some awesome prizes. We're going to reward you for commenting. We've got some family in the audience here. I just love it. So my first guest kicking off the MonDak Wellness Summit is the beautiful Reanna Peterson. This again is the first ever. This is just out of the gate. We've never done anything like this before. And this space, it exists because health is changing. And I found some people in my community who are leading the way, who are there already, who have got expertise to share with you. Each voice that you're going to hear during this week-long summit represents courage, change, and integrity, and a commitment to doing things differently. Like these are our people. So listen with curiosity, listen with discernment and respect for the work that it takes to stand in this place. Our first presenter, Reanna, brings a deeply grounding and necessary conversation to the wellness space, one that often gets overlooked. We can talk a lot about healing and physical healing. Reanna is a licensed counselor and the founder of A Counselor for Every Kid. Her work centers around one powerful truth. Gosh, guys, I'm getting emotional. I'm just so excited and honored that you're here. I'm honored to bring up Reanna. Our health is so profoundly shaped by our safety and by our relationships. So thank you for making this a safe place for her to share. Reanna helps people understand how the nervous system heals through connection, through co-regulation, and vulnerability. Look at me being vulnerable, right? Who's proud of me? And why many of us wellness professionals, how our goals quietly fail when they're rooted in shame, rooted in pressure, rooted in lie-based identity. So let's invite her up to share honestly, examine how safe and how we truly feel in our relationships. why professional support can be absolutely transformative, and how learning to be seen without fear can change everything. This is a conversation about healing that goes way deeper than habits, deeper than protocols, and more powerful than willpower itself. I'm so grateful to bring Reanna up to the MonDak Wellness Summit. You're still muted. There you go.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, cool. Oh, Mom. You're always more vulnerable than you think you are, though, Mom. So it's just so interesting because like I'm looking at my notes, which I just copy and pasted from the form, that I don't know if you mentioned the part that you are my mother, my beautiful mother that we are all so proud of for doing these cool, innovative things. And I'm excited, like you said, this is the first, I hope, of many. And it's just, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm like the first of this groundbreaking, exciting thing. So, but anyways, you put that, I don't know, is that like an introduction about me from the stuff that I put in the form? And every time I like hear the things that I'm like passionate about from somebody else, I'm like, oh, that's like, that's a little deep. That's like, I'm excited, but I'm like, I do think I know what I'm talking about, but hearing it from somebody else, I'm like, wow, that sounds like good stuff. But I just wanted to point out also like what you said about the courage that it takes for us to be, I don't know, doing things different and stuff. I hadn't really ever like thought about it like that, and I just want to thank everybody in here and also everybody, you know, all of the fellow presenters, and especially you, Mom. I don't think you give yourself enough credit for the courage that it does take to do these types of things. And I was telling my husband before when I was getting ready, I was honestly, because this is my first like live thing, and it's hi beautiful grandma. And it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. And I was telling him that I was kind of comparing it to my second son's labor, where I was like trying to remind myself of how much courage that I did need. So I thought it was cool that you brought that out. But I also was kind of intimidated when you had mentioned that I bring something that is grounding, because I don't feel super grounded right now. I actually feel not very grounded. So just a disclaimer out there that this is not necessarily the me typically in my professional life. I'm a little more grounded in my professional arena. But yeah, but I liked how grounding and necessary, I would definitely agree, are very good things to describe the things that I am passionate about. Okay, but I'm looking at my notes. But Mom, I first wanted to ask you if you have any questions that you think I should start with from the things that I put on the form.
Trying to get off mute. No, I love that we're just kind of having an organic, not rehearsed conversation. And even I think us coming together shifts that energy. Like we're just ready. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting because I have a letter stored in my treasure box somewhere of that my mom wrote over me. I think my brother was in there somewhere. Which is just kind of crazy to think about. The things that you wrote in there are literally happening in this moment. I don't know if you remember that, but maybe I'll share that for the next one when we're all a little bit closer. That's a little maybe too much to share with all these people that I haven't met yet. But maybe someday. So, okay, let me think about what would I want to share with everybody on here. If there was one thing that if I would want you to hear something that I have to say, is kind of like what my mom mentioned in the introduction, is truly the importance of like what we would call co-regulation. And something that I get really, I don't know, passionate about is like the whole nervous system thing is becoming quite a buzzword. And it is so important. It really is. I think spiritually, mentally, physically, it is very, very important. But my only concern with it is that a lot of times we're trying to change things about our nervous system just right now and for the future, and we aren't taking the time to really go back and figure out like, okay, how did this happen? Like, how did we get to the place? How did my nervous system get to where it's at right now? Like, and we could dive so far into, your mental health and triggers and XYZ. But the point is not really about that. I just really encourage people to, and like when I'm working with clients, whether it's in coaching or therapy, is like you have to go back to the past. You have to go to the past to figure out the present. And if I've learned anything through working with people, it's that is understandably very scary. And that's where I get so excited about the professional services. And I'm personally, as a counselor for every kid, I will say, like, kind of a disclaimer, I guess, the clients that I work with, I think there's maybe in my bio or something about I'm more with like young women. I have a coaching program right now that I'm working on developing called Finding the Language of You. And, kind of my niche is working with women who might be mothers, but are like coming to the realization that like they don't have to be go, go, go. They don't have to be perfect, all of these things. But in general, for anybody on here who doesn't maybe fit into that, I noticed that there are quite a few professionals on the Wellness Summit. So if you're not planning to listen to the rest of the ones this week, I would definitely encourage you to, because it sounds like there's some professionals closer in the community that I would definitely encourage you to consider working with, because my point being is that in order for us to really understand and heal our nervous systems, like I said, we have to go back to the past. And because that is so scary, it really is helpful to have somebody, a professional, who can walk that through with you. I notice in my career working with, I started in the mental health field working with young kids, like super young. I went to school thinking that I was going to be a school counselor, specifically like a high school counselor. And then I had the option to get my clinical professional counseling license. And so to do that, I had to have an extra internship, whatever it's called, practicum in a clinical mental health field. And my first job ever, I left because now, like in hindsight 2020, it was kind of a silly idea. But the town and the Boys and Girls Club that I was working in and the public schools came together, and we created this program called the Atlas program. And basically, every student in the Bartlesville School District was given the ACE test, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and we grouped together literally the most traumatized kids in the community, and we put them all together into one class. And now, even just now, as I say that, I'm like, oh, that was not a great idea. There was some really good things that came out of it. But anyways, that was like my first step into doing things different, because I found a book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. And I was actually reading it on my way back up to Montana to see family. And it was like the first thing that really put me into like this more holistic mindset. And again, like the courage to do things different. And so I'm so, so, so grateful that I started with that. Like I'd never had really gotten indoctrinated into what I would call like the traditional mental health field. And I seriously praise God for that, because it really gave me the groundwork to, really focus on like whole body healing from the get-go. And then that really expounded on really from my mom during, I don't know, what was it, like COVID? I think it was around COVID when you really started diving into the rest, like beyond like just trauma and stuff, and like the holistic mindset. And so over the last couple, what am I, like 5-6ish years, I've really found that the connection, I guess, between all of that, like trauma healing and healing the body and just our emotional health. And and then after when I started working with kids, then slowly I ended up working like with more adults. And no matter what anybody's story is, no matter how severe their trauma was, no matter how severe their depression symptoms, their bipolar symptoms, anything you want to call it, it would always come back to the same thing of, have you had the opportunity in your life from the moment you were born until now to engage in the process of grief? Have you been able to have somebody there for you from, like I said, from when you were little, that sees you, that makes you feel seen, safe, soothed, and secure? I use those 4 S's from Dr. Daniel Siegel. If you're interested in my mental health course, I say those so many times, but that's where I first learned it from. And we have to have that. We have to have that opportunity to stay in this cycle of grief. And like when I talk about grief, it's the gap between what you thought was going to happen, what you hoped and you thought and assumed was going to happen, and what has actually happened. And like I said, no matter who I was working with, which is where I got kind of burnt out because I found myself like on replay of like, okay, I'm saying the same things over and over and over again, which has really kind of inspired me in some of the, what is it called? Different things that I'm working on creating now. Like I created the mental health e-course, starter kit e-course. And like I said, right now I'm working on a coaching program that will kind of help people hear all of that without having to pay as much money for individual sessions, because I felt kind of bad because there's so much groundwork. Like I had to explain so much of just what does it mean to have feelings? Like what does that even mean? What does it actually mean to have needs, and what does it actually look like to grieve? And so my point being with that is that it takes knowledge plus connection. And some of those things that our nervous system is trying to heal from, our most well-meaning friends, our most well-meaning parents, and anybody in your circle, they still might not be able to make you feel seen, safe, soothed, and secure. And that is where cue the professional services can be worth every single penny. And I'll just be honest. I'll give you an example. Like if there was something in my marriage that I found out, whatever was going on, and then I start doing all the things that I do when I think about things and I go back to my past. If something comes up where it's like something that I need to kind of process and deal with my feelings and my grief about, whatever it is, I'm not going to want to go to my mom because that's not fair to her, right? That's not fair for me to process all those things. Maybe eventually it will be the building blocks for a great conversation between us. But there's sometimes I feel like, especially in the cowboy up culture, there's a gap between there's like a missing step of like, okay, first I need to process this on my own so then I can connect with other people in in the way that I want to. I hope that is making any sense. Is that making sense? Good. Okay. I'll keep going because I just get so passionate about this, and I have since moved away from like the MonDak. I'm licensed in the MonDak. I have people that I'm working with right now in the MonDak, but I'm physically in Oklahoma. And not that it's like nothing against anybody, because Oklahoma is just the same. Anywhere is just the same. Just the stigma against it's like there's just a stigma against true vulnerability. And I guess that's just what I get so excited about fighting against in this health space. But again, what I'm learning is that takes a lot of like, okay, but how do I actually do that? Like, it's not as easy as we'd like to think. Actually talking, feeling your feelings, it's not that easy. In fact, it's simple, but it can be quite difficult. And that's where a professional can be so helpful.
And it's not glamorous.
No.
It's not glamorous. No. Like when you're talking, it reminds me so much of, and I'm sure you remember all my stories. For years, I worked in corrections. I was the jail nurse. And, when you talk about that safety, security, all your S's, well, nobody that I ever sat with in jail that was there for whatever reason, that no 5-year-old says, when I grow up, I want to be an addict. When I grow up, I want to be in and out of jail. So that grieving, there's so many people who have never been helped through the process of letting go of that coulda, shoulda, woulda. Or maybe they had the expectation that, I would say, if you ask me, my 6th grade me, I was going to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Like that's what 6th grade Tanya was going to be. I knew I really wasn't, but those things, right? If you were going to have the family farm or whatever, and life got in the way, it's a grieving process. Breakups are a grieving process. Letting go of what you thought something was going to be.
Yeah, and what I'm working on this in my coaching program too. I just kind of had this realization of like, oh, I like to learn this way. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody likes to learn this way. So trying to like, okay, but like I like to like teach me, I look up at my bookshelf and I have so many books that I have read. The Body Keeps the Score, everything about like, I want to learn, like, give me the full picture, tell me how this works, and then I want to break it down and, talk with people about it. So I guess I've really implemented that in my professional, I don't know, career and how I work with people, which is how I've created so far the Finding the Language of You coaching program that I'm doing right now, because I've gone like step by step. And what I have found that was like people really like to learn about their bodies, which you've probably seen this too in more of like the physical health. Like, I guess there's a disclaimer because my passion, my niche is definitely more of like the heart issues. I like to know how my heart connects to my brain. You are much more better at learning all of the other things and a lot like I don't even like the gut and all of those things which I know are important. So I have found that people like to learn in certain things. So I guess I connect with people who also want to learn more about like how their brain developed and their heart specifically. If they want to learn more about like, oh, what is it called? Like I think they call it like your gut, your third brain or whatever. That's not totally my thing. So but anyways, I have found that people like to be taught. And so I literally I have in my program and when I was working with my clients, I would go like step by step, like this is how your brain developed. This is how you were supposed to. And the thing that is really important about that, what I'm getting at is a lot of times we don't know what we are supposed to be grieving. There's just something I truly believe because, like Matthew 18:3 says, like we were, the verse about coming like a child. I have found that there's so much of like, what does that actually mean to be like a child? And so there's just things that our souls craved from the moment that we were formed in the womb, that sometimes it's really, really helpful to actually be taught what was it that you needed. And the biggest thing that it always comes back to is attunement. And it's just interesting because a lot of times, and I would say, I think there's a lot of things shifting, which I don't know. I guess I feel like from what I know, like obviously we're different generations. So I do think that when you said in the thing about being a leader, I have found that I feel like I'm definitely kind of, I don't know, that sounds cocky to say, but like a leader in like the young mom, the like women who are going to become moms eventually, of teaching them of like, no, seriously, like what does your baby's brain actually need to develop well so that their nervous systems won't need this healing by the time they're in their, teens, 20s and 30s and beyond. And the thing that always comes back to is just attunement. And I think for various reasons in our culture and whatever, that is just something that has been overlooked, that again, I get really passionate about. Like, pause, let's hold on, like what does that really, really mean? So that's one of those things that I think I have found that people benefit from learning that they have to grieve that. So for example, like a question that I always encourage people to really look at is like, what did the first year of your life actually look like? And that can be very interesting to go into because a lot of times when people think about childhood, they just think about when our memories start to become conscious, right? When we, a lot of times people think about like when your first memory was typically around the ages of like 4 and 5, but actually the majority of your brain actually developed before you even turned like I shouldn't say the majority, before even before like 2. And so there's just so much that goes on. And then another thing with that though that I always like to help people explain is that it's not right or wrong, right? Like for example, one of the things that my mom did for me that I won't do for my babies is I cried it out like for sleep training. And if you have done that to your babies, like no shame, that's fine. But I will tell you that I don't want to argue with any of the sleep trainers out there. However, I have cried. I have journaled about when I started to try to decide what I want to do with my baby's sleep. My body, my nervous system in those moments grieved the fact that I didn't have that attunement going to sleep at night. So that's just one example of like, those are those things that I would have never I would have never thought until kind of coming into this knowledge that that's something that would have impacted my nervous system. So point being, like, there's just little things like that are really helpful to know and to understand. And sometimes finding out the answers to those questions can be scary. And again, cue the help of a professional that can help you kind of hold space for that, and that can really help you see and understand that. And I like I said, I just get so passionate about kind of paying, and I know sometimes people get frustrated because it's like, I don't want to pay for somebody to just talk to. And it's like, I get that. I do understand like kind of the hesitations. Trust me, I'm pretty, what is it called? Pretty frugal. Like I don't do my nails. Like I don't spend money on super silly thing. I feel like food in my clothes is about like the most what I spend money on. But it's so much more than that. Like when you pay for a professional to talk with, to kind of share your heart with, again, you're putting an investment into your healing, into your growth. But however, how am I doing? Okay, I have like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I will say though, however, not every professional is the same. And that's where I got really passionate about the mental health starter kit course that I created, was because I have just heard so many stories of, people who were finally at that point. They were finally at that point of like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for help. I know that whatever it is that I want to work on, or they have this realization of like, yeah, I can't actually talk to anybody in my circle I want somebody to talk to. And so they get this courage, and it just makes my heart break for all of these people who finally got to this point of courage, this point of like, I will be so vulnerable. And then they were met with a therapist who didn't make them feel seen, safe, soothed, and secure. I mean, I've actually even worked with people who it did the opposite, and they got to a point where they didn't know how to leave the therapy because they felt like they would be, chastised or in trouble. I have worked with people who have kind of shamed the client and whatever, and so stuff like that just absolutely breaks my heart, because I'm just having like all these flashbacks of like being in sessions and like getting emotional and like trying to like stay calm to think that like this client that I'm working with was ever treated that way by another professional. Oh, it just makes me so mad. Anyways, so that is why I created my mental health e-course, was because not only that, but people, like so many people can accidentally waste so much time and money by going to therapy, and they didn't even think about like, what are my goals? What do I want from a therapist? What am I looking for? Oh, I didn't know my insurance could pay for this. What? Like those are the things that get completely overlooked, that I'm really glad that I was able to put something together to help people in that process. Because yeah, it takes courage to decide that you want this connection with other people, and then there is a way to do that well. And I think a lot of people just don't know that, and they don't realize that. And so I'm hoping with that and some of the other resources that I like to create and make will just help people have encouragement to try to connect with, to connect specifically with a professional. But I also put in my mental health e-course in module 3 is all about like, okay, but what if that's not an option, right? Because I do fully understand the part about there, maybe you do want to try therapy, or maybe you just have different convictions that that's not for you, but what if there's like financial issues? I have in my module 3 all about how to basically not go to therapy, but I don't want to say get help, but just maybe improve your wellness without that, if it's something that that you need. I hope that makes sense. And so part 1 is what is therapy, part 2 is how to go to therapy well, and part 3 is what to do if it's not for you. And so I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm trying to condense everything that I love and care about and am passionate about into a very short amount of time. But yeah.
I think that's great. Oh, say, Peggy, Reanna, can you see Peggy's comment?
Yes. So it's all online. So I would, if someday I would love to dream
I
about.
put the link there. I put the link there,
Yes.
Peggy. Another thing that you can do, if you go back to my website on the MonDak page and click on Rihanna's profile, if you find that easier, it will take you to her website as well. So
Yes, but I
yeah,
would definitely encourage people to not like, don't buy or do anything until after this, because I definitely want to give away a free thing. I just don't know how all of that works, Mom.
yeah, so far it looks like my tallying up the comments to do the giveaway might not work. So I will just manually draw names after each night for 4 different gifts. So
Okay, and I did just put the link to my actual, like, to the actual product. But now I'm like, See, now it's just so interesting because now I'm having like all this toxic shame about like, wait, hold on. I don't want you to think that I'm on here to like sell you anything because I'm not. I just want you to be seen safe, soothed, and secure. And sometimes I think it's really helpful to have a professional to do that, to give that
Yeah.
to you.
And that is part of the healer's mentality, the healer's problem for sure, is that we all have that big heart, and then business is a business, right? So we all suffer with that, each and every one of us. And I am going to say that part of the my whole big idea for doing this MonDak is that in the future, I don't know diddly about running a nonprofit, but that is where originally when I started this, there was a ticket price, and I wanted to have that my starter fund for a nonprofit, just for things like that, Reanna, because we all want to give, yet we all run businesses. So in the future, events like this, I hope to start a scholarship program, a nonprofit scholarship program. So any practitioner that is helping me and like supporting the mission, putting information out there, then somebody could get a scholarship to work with Reanna one on one, or to work with me one on one, or any of the practitioners. So that is in the future. That is in the future. Reanna, you've got a few more minutes. I would like you to kind of talk about your struggle with the system, like being licensed as a counselor, and the limitations that that put on who you are and what you can say, and how you kind of had to sort out, do I just call myself a coach and let this licensure go by the wayside so I can speak from the heart and say what I feel is really important?
Yeah. I honestly, I have to give a lot of credit to just God and the Holy Spirit, because sometimes like I think back to some of the clients who I was really able, I boast not myself, but I was really able to help. And I remember there times being like, how am I going to explain this, in that kind of way? But I think the biggest thing for me was starting like from the get-go. I would work with my, explain to my clients kind of some more of the holistic mindset. And um and so I don't know, I feel like I think my customer service skills from being a bartender, from being a waitress, really kind of came in handy a little bit, because I felt like I was really able to um you know be who I wanted to be without coming against that. For me, it was more so kind of the back end of having to, doing the assessments. And for a lot of the times when I was working for a community mental health agency, and many of our clients were on Medicaid, that I always get the two confused. Medicaid, which requires a DSM-5 diagnosis. And so I would straight up tell my clients like, hey, this is just how it is. Like, in order for your services to get paid for, I want to keep like you deserve this help, you need this help. I have to label you with I have to give you a diagnosis on this sheet, because that way your insurance will pay for it. But it always came with like a make sure, like, you have to understand me though, you are not your diagnosis, you are not that. And I really think, again, I think a lot of people that I worked with did feel very seen in that. But it was also interesting too, of like how strange that was to people, like how like, oh, okay, huh, like I didn't really I didn't know that. But for me, now that I am fully licensed on my own, and I have my own private practice, there's just such a beautiful, like, also terrifying freedom in the fact that I can, market myself however I want. Like, I do typically market myself as like a faith-based clinician. And so that is just really exciting, but it's also just weird to like not have anybody, to answer to. It's really exciting. And it was in the creation of my mental health starter kit. I think one of the lessons is on the difference between therapy, counseling, and coaching. And so actually doing that lesson was kind of really helpful for me to really kind of sketch that out and be like, okay, where are some situations that I can call myself a therapist versus a counselor versus a coach? And so that really helped me break that down. And And so now I feel like I just have a better idea of like where it fits. And so, for example, like I'm building my Finding the Language of You coaching program thing, but I also have like a link on, it's called Headway. And so somebody could find me as a therapist. You enter all of your insurance information, and like what is it called when you can take, I'm credentialed with quite a few insurances. And so I've realized that there's an option for both, because then I also get passionate and just frustrated about the fact that, like, you know, insurances won't pay for coaching services, which is just annoying. So again, and that's something that I talk about in my mental health e-course, is that like, if you look into your insurance and you find out that they're pretty generous when it comes to mental health therapy, go to therapy. Like, even if you don't love the idea of being in that system, like, if you know enough going into it, you won't be fooled by it. Does that make sense? And again, that's something that I teach in the e-course of, like, these are some questions that you want to make sure to ask a therapist before you spend a second in their office or before you spend a dime on their services, so that, again, even if they're in that system, you don't have to be in that system. But you can also get the benefits of your insurance, because honestly, let's kind of, like, I don't know, because we do want that. Like, I do think that is important. So yeah, I hope that all makes sense.
That was great. Absolutely great. Is there anybody in the comments that has any other questions? There's a few more minutes before we bring up our next presentation.
Oh, thank you guys so much for the encouragement. I was just looking at the comments, and it's very, it feels good to to hear those things. I was definitely
It was, and this was such a good crowd. It was such a good crowd. We appreciate you, each and every one. Thank you so much. When Reanna goes off the screen, I'm gonna bring back that video just for a couple minutes while I take a quick bathroom break, and then we will be back.
Okay, Mom, I do want to just read one quote if I have a couple minutes.
Yeah, go for it.
So this quote that I'm about to read is from the book The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. Just a disclaimer, you've probably possibly heard about that book. If you don't like textbook style books, don't read it. Find somewhere to summarize it. It is very in-depth. But the quote from his book is this. And he's talking about, like, in regards to healing from trauma and going to professional services, to therapy. He says, actually, time out, sorry, I misquoted that. For this quote, he's referring to just relationships in general. He's referring to, like, in order to heal from trauma, you have to be connected, which I know some of the other presenters in this week are going to speak on that. So he's talking about, like, just the importance of these relationships where you can be truly, truly vulnerable. He says that you need someone who is not afraid of your terror and who can contain your darkest rage, someone who can safeguard the wholeness of you while you explore the fragmented experiences that you had to keep secret from yourself for so long. Yeah, so I wish I forget that this is live. If I was doing a recording, I would tell you to pause that and, like, re-listen to it. So I'm just going to say it one more time. You need someone who is not afraid of your terror and who can contain your darkest rage, someone who can safeguard the wholeness of you while you explore the fragmented experiences that you had to keep secret from yourself for so long. And so that quote, it's so deep. It is so deep. And again, not everyone in your circle, even the people who you are closest to, sometimes they just don't have the tools to do that for you, but that doesn't mean that you don't need it, right? Just because other people can't give it to you doesn't negate the fact that you still need that person who can hold that space for you. So again, I would just encourage you to consider that. And if you have done that before, and if you've had a bad experience working with a professional in regards to whether it's your mental health, your trauma, whatever you want to call it, and it was bad, like I said, I know that is a pretty common experience, unfortunately. I would just really encourage you to try to give it another shot. I think it could be good, if you're able to go to therapy well. So, okay, that's all I got for you. I don't know what happens here because I think my mom may have ran to the bathroom. So let's see if I can find another quote for you.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I figured out the drawing, everybody. Yay me!
That was fast.
The winner is Leona. I don't know how to say your last name. I don't know. Kanapkewicz. Reanna, how do you say that last name? She's in the comments
I'm
there.
guessing the K is silent. Now, Lexi, I don't know. I'm sorry.
That is one of my main vulnerabilities is my hooked on phonics. Like, yeah, I could never be a radio announcer. So we did get a winner. Woohoo! Awesome. Leona, where are you from? Are you able to stop in at Awaken Wellness and pick up your prize? No answer yet. Okay, now Reanna, you can relieve yourself. I'm gonna put on that video, and
thank you so much, everybody. You guys were a great first audience for me. All right, I just don't know how to get out of here. Oh, there we go.
okay, I'm back. Thanks everybody for staying with us. Oh, this is just so much fun already. What a great crowd. Thank you for getting in the comments. Keep it up. Keep it up. I think I should be able to give away another prize at the end of this next presentation. So the summit is not about fixing everything tonight. So that's really important to keep in mind. It's about exposure, it's about connection, it's about planting seeds. Every presentator, I cannot say that, every presentation brings a unique lens. It's like a smorgasbord of people here in the MonDak. I'm just so thankful that they're being brave and they're coming out, exposing their businesses, exposing their thoughts at new levels. It takes a lot. So I'm so proud of them, and I want them to really know that their unique lens, like we often say that we all have our own colored glasses, right? Some people have rose colored, some people have blue, you know what I mean? Everybody sees life through their own lens and has something worth hearing. So our next speaker, Jessica, I'm gonna get your name right, Jessica. She says like ID Ford, so ID Flighty. Jessica Flighty is a powerful reminder that healing it's not a theory. It really happens and it's personal. After a life-altering car accident abruptly ended her career as a esthetician, Jessica was told she may never fully heal. So instead of accepting that outcome, she turned her recovery into a mission. Today, Jessica partners with a wellness professionals to enhance and extend what they're already doing, using safe in-home based healing technologies that support healing on a deeper level. So welcome. You're going to hear her compassion, her experience, and a little bit of science. Welcome to the stage, Jessica.
Can you hear me? All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, and what a great presentation. Earlier I was listening to Reanna. It's a really tough act to follow. So welcome. Who here has ever had something happen so suddenly that your body and your whole life split into two? There was the before you and the after you. Living in a body that didn't feel like yours anymore. And maybe that you're quietly wondering, is this just how my life is going to be now? If this sounds like you, pop a 1 in the chat. Have you ever had a client or been the client who did everything right? Therapy, pills, surgery, rest, and still didn't heal? If you know how frustrating that is, pop a 2 in the chat. All right, we have some people. Well, what if the real problem isn't the injury, but it's that the body simply forgot how to heal itself? And what if there was a way to help it remember? Who would like to know about something like that? Drop a yes in the comments if you'd like to know about something like that. Got to look at my phone here so I can see. All right, if you responded in the chat to any of those questions, you are exactly who I came here to speak with. My name is Jessica Felighty, and I've lived through those questions. And after testing so many different things, I finally found something that changed everything for me. And now I help others do the same. So today isn't a lecture, it's a story, my story, and stories of others who felt hopeless until one thing shifted. And maybe if you choose, it can give you hope and hope to your patients. 7 years ago, I was 39 and I felt on top of the world. I was a paramedical esthetician, a career that I loved, using my hands with precision to help people feel beautiful and confident every day. And I was extremely active. I water skied, snowboarded, golfed, did yoga, anything just to be outdoors. Life was good. And then one day, everything ended. Let me tell you what happened to me. I was a passenger riding in a pickup. The tire caught the edge of the road. The driver overcorrected and we rolled 5 times, I was told. I was thrown out of the back window like a rag doll from one side of the ditch to the other. Both wrists shattered. Multiple ribs broken, my shoulder blade crushed, my neck damaged. The surgeon stood over me and he said, "You should be paralyzed from the neck down or not here at all." Doctors told me I'd lose my career, my hands would never work the same, and it would all get worse as I got older. Try imagining being told that your whole entire identity gone at 39. I know some of you don't have to imagine. I couldn't pull up my own pants. I had to eat with 2 hands just to lift a fork. My hair only got washed when somebody came to my house. Doors had to stay open because I couldn't even turn handles. I had to sleep sitting in a recliner because lying down made me dizzy and the pain was unthinkable. Light touch felt like fire. And this is the part that nobody prepares you for. People see scars, but they don't see the daily humiliation. And underneath all of this, flashbacks, panic attacks in cars, and the terror that I would never be me again. I know some of you treat patients living this every day, and some of you are living this yourselves. And medical professionals kept telling me that I would never fully heal, that I'd never be able to use my hands the way that I used to, and it would only get worse as I got older. But I refused to believe them, though, because I knew there had to be a way to fix my broken body. Like so many accident survivors, I fought. For 4 years, I tried everything I could get my hands on to restore my hand function and to calm my chronic back pain, muscle tension, and flashbacks. Prescription painkillers, or as I would like to call them, constipation and no memory pills that stopped working for me after a couple of weeks. Muscle relaxers, those just knock you out so that you don't feel anything pills, is what I call them. Physical therapy. Often it's so hard to get an appointment, short time actually spent with a therapist, and I've had so many bills afterwards. Some of these helped a little, but most of it was temporary. Hope followed by disappointment. None of it gave me my life back. And each year, my wallet got smaller and my hope was smaller. Who here has experienced that? Practitioner or fellow survivors, have you ever felt like that you're doing everything right, but still nothing seems to make a difference? You can see though that I tried so many things, but there were actually a few things that I absolutely refused to try. Why? Because I learned that with every treatment, it has a risk versus a benefit. And that was important for me to consider because each new treatment that I offered that. Surgery. So I had a pinched nerve in my neck and arm. My whole left arm and hand would go numb many times a day, especially if I turned my head in a certain way. So doctors had suggested surgery. But unfortunately, I knew somebody who went into shoulder surgery with a fully functioning arm, and he came out with a paralyzed arm because a nerve was nicked. So I decided that I would rather live with numbness and discomfort than risk permanent paralysis, because for me, that risk didn't match the benefit. Botox. I'm a paramedical esthetician, and there was no way I was going to even stick that toxin in my face. Yet sports injury clinics wanted to inject multiple syringes into my already atrophied back muscles to calm the spasms. So that was a no. Steroid injections. I already hated needles. I had already gained weight from not being mobile, and I didn't want more side effects, more inflammation, or more weight on a body that was already struggling for something that might not even last. Dry needling. Okay, so the nearest place was a 10-hour drive, and I couldn't drive. So I was like, how am I going to get there? And now we know that it can actually cause microscarring in the tissues. So I'm actually glad now that I didn't add more trauma to my body. Massage gun. My hands didn't even work well enough to even hold one. So honestly, I had zero desire to even try jackhammer my already hurting muscles. So yes, I did refuse some things, but here is the important part, that I refused to stop looking. After 4 years, I hit the point that nobody talks about. I started planning on how to not be here anymore. I pictured myself 50 years old, living in assisted care, unable to use my hands, and I couldn't survive having that thought. And I know that someone in this room understands that kind of thinking, whether it's their own thoughts or the hidden thoughts of your own patients. That is why I am here, because accident survivors don't have to reach that edge. So often people think healing is just about bones and muscles, but it isn't. We all know that it's so much deeper than that, don't we? It's identity, it's independence, it's dignity, it's confidence, it's sleep, it's memory, it's touch, it's fear. It's watching everyone else live their life while you're sitting in a chair, exhausted from doing nothing, and a body that is always protecting itself stops circulating and stops communicating. And you're just told to live with it. Here's what nobody told me after healing from an accident. Simple tasks that I used to take for granted were now a nightmare. I couldn't lift my arm due to my broken shoulder blade, so I couldn't wash or brush my hair. My hair only got tended to if somebody came over to my house to wash and brush it, which was usually just once a week. I could only put on a shirt if it zipped up, and that was even a challenge because I only had 3 working fingers to try to zip it. Getting into the fridge to get food was even a painful task. I had to have people put liquids into smaller, lighter containers that weren't closed because I couldn't use my fingers to open any sort of lid or top. My doors had to remain open in my apartment so that I could get outside, and I had to use my foot just to open the other doors. When I traveled to my appointments, the person driving would have to open the bathroom doors for me to get in, and then I'd have to kick the door so that they knew it was time to open the door to let me out. Getting into a vehicle and trying to bend just right that didn't hurt, or trying to sit down without the use of my arms or hands. I had to kick the handicap button open to open the door just to get into the hospital to get to my physical therapy appointments. I couldn't lie down in bed because I couldn't even get into bed, nor could I lie flat on my back without wanting to pass out due to poor circulation. So I had to sleep in a recliner so that I didn't get dizzy, and that was a challenge because everything hurt and was broken from the waist up. Anything that brushed lightly against my hand skin made me want to scream and go through the roof in pain because everything was hypersensitive. And because my right side of my body was damaged, my left side started to overcompensate, which showed up a year later with new aches and cramps. Physical challenges can sometimes be temporary, but it's the emotional and the psychological aftershock that takes the longest to heal. I cried every time that I had to go to physical therapy. One reason was because it was just physically a lot to even get there, but mainly it was because of all emotions that bubbled up as I sat in the lobby just waiting for my turn. I was anxious because I realized that I was going to physical therapy because I wasn't normal anymore. My body was broken, and I couldn't do the simple tasks that I never used to have to think about to even do them. Now, I have to learn how to button up a shirt like I'm a kid again, to grab a pencil, and to pick up a glass and move it to my mouth. My career depended on my recovery, and I was scared, sad, and angry all at once. What if I can't use my hands again? Will I have to go back to school? Can I afford to start my life over again at my age being single? I stopped going out in public except to walk to go get a few groceries. I had social anxiety because people would come up to me and ask why I was walking weird and why I had scrapes on my arms and face. People would always ask me about the car accident and ask if I remembered flying out of the vehicle. Outsiders never realize what's actually going through your mind post-accident. They think that they're being caring by asking, but really it just sends you on an emotional roller coaster that you would rather forget. I couldn't even watch a movie with a car going fast without having a nervous breakdown. Any slight movement as a passenger in a vehicle would trigger me. I wondered, will life ever be great again? Or is this just what I meant to live with? One day, after 4 years of testing so many things and losing hope that I would ever be normal again, something kind of weird happened. I was visiting a friend and she said, "Jessica, lie on this mat that I bought." And I laughed. A mat? After everything that I've tried, how is this mat going to help me? But I lie on it, mostly to be polite. And something happened. Not dramatic, not fireworks, but something inside my body woke up, like circulation whispering back into my life. I went home and I did what all skeptics do. I researched. And then I tested it myself every day, like brushing my teeth. 3 days in, my grip was already getting stronger. My back pain already started to change from sharp to dull. And for the first time in a long time, I actually slept throughout the night. 3 months in, I forgot that I'd ever been thrown out of that pickup because I could now open doors, I could cut food, I could drive without my hands locking up, and I could actually stand without needing a chair in the room. And eventually, I did something that I thought I would never do again. I gripped a ski rope and I slalom water skied. And I cried, but not from pain, but because I finally got my hands back and my body. So you might be wondering, is this mat actually magic? No, it isn't magic, but it simply helped my body get the circulation, the electrical signaling, and the oxygen it needed to do what bodies are designed to do: heal. It was the first thing that didn't demand more effort from my broken body. 8 minutes, twice a day, that was it. And trust me, if it required discipline or behavior change, I would not be standing here. Okay, I know I promised no lecture, but if you're someone like me who is big into how the body works, I want to show you this quick video. You're going to see what's happening inside of the body before lying on the mat, 3 minutes on the mat, 6 minutes, and 22 minutes after the full 8-minute session on the magic mat. I also want to point out that this video is of a 35-year-old male under stress, no other health issue. So what you're looking at is the microcirculation. And what you're seeing is a capillary and arterial on the before laying on the mat and 8 minutes after the 8-minute session. The second screen is of a venule. And this is eliminating waste from the body. And you can also see there are some white circles. Those are white blood cells, which are our immune system. So it's like the cops on the street protecting us. The capillaries, arterioles, and venules make up 74% of our circulatory system. Some of you might still be thinking, okay, how does this mat actually heal? Okay, it uses a low frequency that increases your microcirculation. The way I like to think of it is like a wireless charger for your body. You know how you can lay your cell phone on a charging pad instead of plugging it in? It's like that, but for humans. So when you lie on it, it helps open up tiny little blood vessels. It supports oxygen delivery. It helps remove waste like CO2, and it gives your cells the environment that they need to work again. Most people don't feel anything as they're on it because there's no heat, there's no vibration, and there's no shocks. But just like you don't feel your hair or your nails growing, things are taking place under the surface. So this is what is taking place in the body, as like how in that video you saw previously about the blood flow before and after, how sluggish that blood was before lying on this mat, and how fast it was moving after 8 minutes lying on this mat. And I found that interesting, but it's actually this next thing that really got my attention. Who here has ever tried to change your diet or exercise routine? Put a Y in the chat. Yep, I sure have. And why is that so difficult? Because it requires a change in behavior, correct? And that's often not an easy thing for most of us. But what if I told you that to get full benefits of the magic mat, it requires no change in behavior? This magic mat is a great team player when it comes to working with other devices or other treatments. This is being used as an adjunctive therapy that can be incorporated into patient treatments if you're a clinician, and for patients to use at home in between treatments. So it doesn't matter that if you're in a clinical setting or in the comfort of your own home. The basic protocol for maximum benefits is 8 minutes in the morning and 8 minutes in the evening on a full body mat. That's it. Easy, right? You can put the full body mat on top of your body if you are immobile and can't get out of bed, the recliner or hospital bed. You can be on the couch, recliner, massage table, chaise lounge chair, floor, or on a rug. You can even use it outside in nature. If you're someone who travels a lot for work or pleasure, there's also a second body mat. This one lies nicely on your mattress, and you can put it under your mattress cover and sheets with your blankets over it. It also works well on a massage table in your clinic. It also folds up nicely for travel in your backpack or suitcase. And if you or your patients have bladder or colon leakage issues, you can also use a waterproof mattress cover so that your bed doesn't get wet. Maybe your body isn't fully broken like mine was, or maybe you've just got one main injury or one main sore spot. This magic mat also has a special applicator for local healing. I want to talk about Ken. 53-year-old Ken had already been through the frightening part, a blood clot that eventually dissolved. But the swelling in his legs and feet never truly left. So it made even the simple act of him putting on his shoes feel like a daily reminder that something still wasn't right. When I met him, I used one applicator over his liver for 8 minutes, and at the same time, I placed another below his calves to his feet. And after that short session, I repositioned one applicator and left one B-sit under his calves and feet. The next day, his wife called and told me that Ken had been outside on his feet working all day. And that was something that he hadn't been able to do comfortably in quite a while. But she still had wondered, what exactly should we be looking at to know if it actually did anything? 2 days later, she texted me again. Something interesting happened, she said. Yesterday morning, when Ken went to put his shoes on, his shoes were too big. I'm guessing inflammation down. He's never had that before. A result, maybe? Her words weren't filled with hype, but a quiet surprise. A moment noticing something in real life that didn't used to happen. I've also had the chance to work with people of different ages recovering from knee and hip surgeries. What struck me wasn't just their determination to not miss out on upcoming activities and events that they wanted to be healed for, but it was actually their pace of their recovery. Orthopedic surgeons often remind patients that a full recovery can take close to a year. But all the individuals that I've worked with were showing the kind of progress that we typically expect at the 12-month mark. But only they were reaching that level around month 3. The only variable that we changed was adding daily sessions with the mat and specific applicator positions. Nothing extreme, just a consistent protocol alongside whatever their surgeon had already prescribed them. So I'm not claiming that it replaces rehabilitation or medical care, but what I am noticing is this approach seems to support the body's natural healing process in a way that I didn't expect. And when people can reclaim 9 months of recovery, it raises questions worth exploring. I also want to share a story about how I helped use the B-Sit to help Dan. At an expo earlier this year, I met Dan, a 71-year-old veteran who was working the booth next to me. He asked about the mats in my chair, and when we began talking, he quietly shared some pieces of his story. For years, he had lived with nightmares from his military service. He relied on a walker because any kind of distance was exhausting. And with a mix of embarrassment and honesty, he told me that even his relationship had been affected. He hadn't been able to perform in the bedroom in more than 2 years, even with taking the blue pill. Since we were together for 3 days, I asked if he'd like to try some sessions and just see if anything shifted for him. And I did 3 times a day for 3 days. I had him sit on the B-Sit. After the first day, he came over with a surprised look on his face and said he had walked to the bathroom without his walker, only resting once. And that night, he told me he slept straight through the night for the first time in a long time. On the 4th day, he sent me a text that I would never forget. Just 4 words. I got it, Geronimo. And that was his way of just saying that he had gotten a piece of his life back. The B-Sit is also used for temporary or long-term wheelchair use. And if you've had an amputation, the B-Pad is great to relieve swelling, to help nerve damage issues, or assist in healing irritations from a tight or rubbing prosthesis. I want to share a story about Sherry. When I first met Sherry, she had just been sent home from the hospital with severe swelling in her amputated limb. They told her that there was nothing more that they could do for her. 2 days later, the swelling became so painful that she ended up back in the ER. Because of how swollen her limb was, she couldn't even put her prosthesis back on. They sent her home again, and this time with compression stockings. But the discomfort didn't change, the swelling didn't let up, and she was still stuck, unable to move the way that she needed to just to function day to day. A close friend of hers reached out to me and asked if I could help in any way. And I told her the truth. I don't know if this is going to help her, but I really think that we should try. So I focused on 2 areas, her limb and her liver. And I repeated a simple routine that she repeated every 3 hours. What happened over the next few days surprised all of us. By day 3, the swelling had come down enough for her to put her prosthesis back on. But it wasn't just the swelling. She told me that her limb was stronger. Her prosthesis foot wasn't dragging anymore, and she could actually stand and walk with more confidence, something she hadn't been able to do in weeks. Watching her reclaim that bit of independence, that's the part that stays with me. It reminded me how deeply people want their bodies back, and even in those small ways, and how meaningful those shifts can be for someone who's been told, there's nothing else that we can do for you. There are many ways that I use the B spot and B pad in my healing journey. Because I broke my neck, it was hard to turn my head from shoulder to shoulder. So try backing out of a parking spot when you can't turn your neck. I felt like Frankenstein. I had to move from the waist up just to turn and look behind me. And to help that, I would use the B pad like a scarf to get my mobility back in my neck. Now I don't have to actually turn from the waist. I can actually turn my head to back out of a parking spot, which is amazing. I also loved using the B pad down my spine for my tight, aching back, and it helped calm my muscles, and it also helped restore my balance and my mobility. Another way that I benefited from the B spot was treating my wrists and over my wrist plate. It helped loosen up my tight, aching wrist, and it also helped give more strength and grip and flexibility back to my fingers. You can use the B spot to move throughout an area, or use the fixing strap and leave it on one spot. Due to my arm being behind my body after being thrown out of the vehicle, my right arm always ached due to overstretched muscles on this side of my body. And honestly, that was the hardest thing for my body to recover from. So I would use the B pad down my whole arm just to ease the discomfort and to help restore the function of my hands. It helped me be able to grab a cup and move it to my mouth to take a drink. And that was something that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get that back. These sessions can go for 8, 16, or 20-minute sessions, and they can be used every 3 hours for quicker healing, which is what I did. For the lower body, there are also many ways that you can utilize the B pad and the B spot. I would place the B pad between my legs so that I could stand longer without getting swollen legs or feet once I was able to stand longer without discomfort. I also used it between my legs before I would push mow my lawn, and also to snow blow my driveway after I was healed. Surgeons like to bacon wrap it, or serpentine styles, like I like to call it, the B pad to work on the soft tissue in a different way post-surgery to help reduce swelling. Let me share another story about Frank. A 75-year-old veteran I worked with hadn't been able to feel his feet for 35 years due to Agent Orange. His doctor told him both legs would need to be amputated if things didn't change. He told me if that were to happen, that he would take his own life. After one session on him, he felt the pads of his feet. After his second session, as he climbed the ladder, he could feel the rungs underneath his feet. 4 months later, he walked over a mile while deer hunting, steady and on his own. And he said to me, "Jessica, now I don't have to have my feet cut off, and I get to stay at home and live my life." Even though I'm speaking today on areas of the body with discomfort, you or your patients may also have other issues along with your body aches. You may have bladder issues, colon issues, digestion issues, a liver issue, kidney issues, pelvic or genital swelling, prostate issues, uterus or ovary issues, fertility issues, rectum issues, or intimacy issues. I want to talk about Jerry. a 72-year-old gentleman with a liver condition. A few months ago, he landed in the hospital with severe swelling everywhere. His blood test read 400. Normal is 30 to 40. When he finally got home, his wife called me in tears. He doesn't want medication, she said, but he can't stay like this, so what do we do? So I asked Jerry to try something unusual, something that he could do at home. I had him drink something simple and place something over his liver 3 times a day, and that was it. 1 week later, his wife called me again, and this time with a different tone. His labs had dropped from 400 to 110. By week 3, his liver number was 35, normal. She told me, laughing and crying at the same time, he's down 20 pounds and I haven't seen his ankles in 50 years. That's when you realize sometimes the body just needs the right nudge and it remembers exactly how to come back. Or what about 90-year-old Karen? Until recently, she'd been learning to live with the kind of loss that most of us can barely imagine. When the pressure in her left eye reached its limit, she lost her vision. Her eye doctor diagnosed her as legally blind and gently told her that there was nothing more that they could offer her. He didn't schedule a follow-up because in his world, the medical road had ended. Karen's son wasn't ready to give up on his mom's quality of life. He reached out to me and asked me the question so many families ask when medicine has done all that it can. Is there anything at all that we can try? I was honest. I told him I don't know if what I do can help her, but I also knew that it was safe to try, and I knew the technique had been used by an optometrist for certain eye-related conditions. So we tried 1 8-minute session. 3 hours later, her son called again, but this time in utter shock. His mother, who'd been seeing only black in that eye, was now seeing blurry color. Over the next month, I saw her 5 more times using the same technique. Slowly, she went from darkness to color to shapes to the world beginning to come back into view. When she returned to her eye doctor, there was actually enough restored vision for them to move forward with a retina transplant, an option that hadn't even been on the table before. And today, at 90 years old, Karen has her eyesight back in that eye. So this isn't a story about a device or a protocol. It's a story about a woman whose world had gone dark, and a moment, a sliver of hope returned. It's a reminder that sometimes, even when medicine has reached its limit, our body hasn't. The PEMF wave can go through casts, mesh, and even if you have plates, screws, or rods inside of your body, that is not a problem. To my medical professionals, healers, and therapists in the room, recently I was listening to an interview with Dr. Thomas Lodi that I believe is especially relevant for clinics offering IV therapy or internal peptide treatments, and frankly, taking any sort of supplements and vitamins internally. He explained why pairing IV treatments with a microcirculation session, such as the Magic Mat, can make such a significant difference. And this is what he had to say. My patients, they come in with stage 4 cancer usually. I'm lucky if they're stage 3. They've had chemo, radiation, and surgery, and they usually come crawling in. And they've been told that they have 3 weeks to live, a month to live. And of course, it's extremely challenging, so we do everything possible. And now that includes the Magic Mat. And the way that we worked it into our program is that since it opens the microcirculation, which, so think about it, is if we're giving a therapy intravenously, the microcirculation is shut down, it's going to shunt. It's going to go to the arteries, to the veins, and it's going to miss the target. And the target is the tissues, the cells. So it wouldn't matter if I'm putting in the best therapy in the world in that vein. If it's not going to the target, then what's the use? This is why some clinics do a session on the mat before therapy to open microcirculation and sometimes after therapy to support recovery. This magic mat is not going to replace you or your healing therapies, but it is here to work with you as a team player, an adjunct that makes whatever that you do already more effective and with less wear and tear on your hands and body. Physical therapists say that their hands don't lie. They don't need to see research because they can feel if it's done anything for their patient when they work on them. Here are a few ways that professionals can use this on their patients. Pre and post surgeries. You can use it up until the surgery, then continue sessions 48 hours post-surgery. Injury recovery. Pre or post chiropractic adjustments. During massage, myofascial release, and lymphatic drainage. During Reiki, reflexology, craniosacral release, and hot stones. During cupping, dry needling, and naturopathic manipulated therapy. In the lobby, prior to getting a physical treatment, psychologists use this on their patients before or during a therapy session, before a decompression session, before or during physical therapy and osteopathic manipulation, before laser treatments, before IV therapy or internal peptide treatments, before water therapy, during acupuncture or acupressure treatments, and sound therapy. The special program offers a special frequency to put your body into rest and relaxation. Here are a few ways that the Magic Mat helps accident survivors emotionally. Use it before you get into a vehicle and travel to calm your mind. Use before a physical therapy appointment to calm your mind and relax your muscles so that your session is more effective. Use before or during a psychology therapy session just to put your mind into a calmer state and to be able to actually focus on what the therapist is saying. Use before you have to be in crowds if you get anxious in crowds or just to leave the house. I want to share a story about a 31-year-old woman I worked with named Mindy. She was a woman whose world had quietly collapsed in and on itself after surviving human trafficking. For years, her home became the only place where she felt remotely safe, and even then, her safety lived on the edge. She slept poorly, waking often with vivid replays of what she had endured, and any sudden movements in her peripheral vision made her startle. Her muscles stayed locked as if her body had never received the message that the danger had actually passed. Family interactions became difficult. Every sound, every request, every small disruption all felt like too much. Most days she stayed in her bedroom, she ate there, she coped there, and she rarely left the house. Her sister-in-law reached out and quietly asked if I could come sit with her and try something non-invasive, something that might help her nervous system calm down. I use it in a specific setting designed to help support deep relaxation, and 20 minutes, she simply rested. None of us expected what happened next. As she was on the mat, she started sharing her fears and discomforts, something she hadn't said to anyone since the situation. The family invited her to join them at the lake that day, and something that she had declined for years. But this time she said yes. Not only did she leave the house, but she spent the afternoon outside around people, talking, laughing lightly. Her sister-in-law told me that she actually seemed present, calm, not on alert, not tense nor on edge. And that night, for the first night, she got to sleep. Her body, usually braced and tense, finally softened. This isn't just about a fix. It's about witnessing somebody's system shift, if only if it was for a day, back towards connection, safety, and possibility. I want to share a quick story about how I incorporated light into my recent healing. A year ago, when I was just getting into CrossFit, I ended up in the doctor's office with discomfort that I just couldn't ignore. And after some evaluation, I learned that I had torn a rib muscle. The plan from the doctor was clear. We were going to alternate from ibuprofen to Tylenol every 3 hours and expect to be out of lifting for about 3 months. And I remember thinking that that plan was not going to work for me. It wasn't because that I dismissed medication, because I do believe that there is a time and place for it, but I didn't want to numb the injury and then accidentally push harder than my body could safely handle. And I also didn't want the mental fog that comes with pain pills. I wanted to stay aware of what was my body was actually feeling. So I tried something different. I incorporated red light, infrared light, and the blood flow focused applicator several times a day on the injury. So it became my daily ritual. 3 weeks later, I was back to lifting weights. No pain pills, no masking the discomfort, just a consistent approach that helped my body do what it was designed to do. Now, I don't claim this as a universal answer because it just made me realize that how many people might benefit when we expand the conversation beyond symptom management and into supportive recovery. When I was first considering buying the magic mat, I had to have a real talk with myself. After my accident, I racked up over $250,000 in hospital bills, $33,000 for one ambulance ride. But that's not the cost that I remember. The real cost was 4 years of missing out, 4 years of watching life happen without me in it. And every dinner that I left to go lie down because my back hurt. Every sporting event that my niece and nephew competed in, and band concert that I said no to. Every trip I passed on, and every day that I needed help just to brush my hair or get dressed. The first thing that I used to do when I walked into a room was to find the nearest chair and sit down. I didn't just lose mobility, I lost me. And that's the cost that I want you to think about. Because maybe you or someone you treat is paying for it right now. Maybe the cost is planning your whole life around pain, saying no to things that you love because your body can't handle them, feeling like a burden, and wondering who you're going to be in 5 years if nothing changes. So before you ask, how much does this magic mat cost? You might like to do what I did. I asked myself, what's this already costing me to stay like this? And be honest, because that answer might change your life like it did for me. I find it fascinating that so many of us think nothing about spending $70,000 on a vehicle. Friends of mine didn't even blink an eye when they spent $10,000 on a bathroom remodel. Yet something that actually heals our actual body is often seen as way too expensive or out of budget. Do you want to know the thing that really shook me and the thing that made me realize that I needed to buy this magic mat? You remember my fear about having to live into assisted living because I couldn't take care of myself? Guess what 1 month in assisted living costs? Does anybody know? Comment in the chat. I'm going to see if I can pull it back up. Any guesses on the cost of assisted living? One month in assisted living in America costs on average $13,000 a month. 1 month. And that's more expensive than the cost of the magic mat. Crazy, right? Anna is 68. 2 years ago, she couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes. She could barely feel her feet and wore a boot, relied on a cane, and planned her days around the bathroom. She said her and her husband stopped traveling, something that they lived for post-retirement. Then I met her. After her first session, her digestion shifted. By day 3, she greeted me at the door, standing without her boot or cane. Today, she's grocery shopping again and going on little dates with her husband. And this year, they finally went to Italy. When I asked her husband what the best part of the trip was, he said, watching Anna stand smiling while the waves hit her. Sometimes the moment that matters the most is just simply being able to stand again. For the professionals here today, you can choose to keep doing the treatments you've always provided and hope that they're the right ones for that particular client. Or you can choose to add something that doesn't wear out your hands, doesn't require more pills for your patients, and enhances the treatments that you're already providing for them. Imagine how grateful that they will be when you finally help them heal. My fellow survivors, you didn't choose to be injured and be stuck dealing with physical and emotional trauma, but you can choose how to heal from it. And maybe you might choose to try something that helped a woman whose body was so wrecked, she thought she'd never get her life back. And then I did. I'm not here today to sell you a mat, and I'm not asking you to believe everything that I've said, but I'm asking you to stay open to possibility for yourself or for the people that you care for. Because sometimes the body just needs the right nudge and it remembers how to come back. And if anything in my story stirred something in you, if part of you said, God, I need that, talk to me afterwards, ask questions, make an appointment to feel the mat for yourself. Tell me your story. There is no pressure, just possibility. Because I'm standing here today with working hands, strong posture, and a life that I love. After being told that I would never heal again. And I refuse to keep this option a secret. And if you're ready, I'm ready. My name is Jessica Felighty, and my business helps people who've been in major accidents, who got told they never heal again, like what happened to me. I help you get real, lasting relief without leaving your house. I don't know if this will work for you like it worked for me and the people that I've worked on, but what if it does? To book a consultation with me, you can text or call me at the number on the screen. I have 7 slots available right now. Thank you for your time and happy healing.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Wow, those stories were amazing. You on that water ski after, I mean, I know how much grip that takes, and I have never had a crazy accident. So, wow, that is just wow. You're in good company in the comments. You've got a lot of Beamer people, a lot of people that own them. There's a Heather that might want to get in touch with you. Her mom has got an issue going on. I did mention in the comments that you do have some rental units.
Yes.
So yes, awesome. You did amazing. You filled your time with grace and spoke like you've been doing this your whole life. You did such a good job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And you are over actually. So
right.
you guys, Jessica will be here in the comments. So she can keep chatting with you in the comments. We're gonna go ahead and get rolling with Brenda, who is next.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Right, let me get my notes over here. I'm excited. This is just absolutely how I pictured this would be. This is what collaboration looks like. Different people from different backgrounds using different methods with one shared goal is helping people, bringing people to a better state of health. The Bakken is full of practitioners who are willing to step forward. And tonight you are getting to hear from 4 of us. I will speak at the end. So in the MonDak, we know what it means to be tough. Like I love Jessica's determination, what it took to come back from that. Like that's awesome that magic mat found her, but it was deep in her. She had to have the heart to bring that back. So we raise families, we work long hours, we show up when it's hard, and we carry responsibility quiet. We are MonDak tough. Here is what gets missed in communities like us. The people doing the most caring are often the ones running on empty. Tonight's speaker, Brenda Roach's voice, she is going to bring that to the forefront. She speaks from the heart, and she takes care of the people in the background who don't complain, who don't quit, who don't ask for help until their bodies, till their nervous systems force them to make that conversation about themselves. She helps the children, but she also helps their caregivers. Caregivers just get left in the dust. She is founder of Health and Wellness by Dr. Brenda. She works at the intersection of brain science, caregiving, and real life. Not theory, not trends, and not perfection. Come on up, Brenda.
Thank you so much. This has been so inspiring, all these speakers. It's amazing. It really is nice to see all of the different ways that we can, different technologies and different things we can do to really look at healing kind of our lives. So if you want to bring up my slides there, Tanya. Excellent. Thank you so much. So again, I am Dr. Brenda Roach, but you can call me Brenda. I'm a pediatric neuropsychologist, a wellness practitioner, and really someone who has spent many years just walking alongside families of children with special needs, foster, adoptive parents, grandparents, and the professionals who support them. But before I go any further, I want to say one important thing. If you're watching this and you are not a parent, grandparent, caregiver, or professional supporting a child with special needs, this conversation is still for you. Because while many of my examples come from a caregiving world, the experience I'm going to be talking about is much broader. Many of you here tonight are very busy people. You give a lot to others. You show up. You take responsibility. You carry more than most people actually realize, probably including yourself. And if you're here, it's likely because you're also on a quest to improve your health, energy, focus, and well-being. And the brain doesn't differentiate between the types of demand: chronic busyness, chronic responsibility, chronic stress. They all impact our nervous system in very similar ways. So while I'll be speaking directly to caregivers and professionals, these tools apply to anyone who gives more than they receive, feels stretched thin, or wants to care for themselves more sustainably. If you have ever felt overwhelmed, exhausted, or like your own needs keep landing at the bottom of the list, how many can relate to that? You're in the right place. And one of the things has become very clear to me is caregivers are some of the most strongest people I know, but they also are some of the most exhausted. Tonight is not about fixing you. It's not about doing more, trying harder, or becoming more disciplined. Tonight is about understanding what caregiving and chronic responsibility do to the brain and body, and learning how to care for yourself in ways that are realistic, sustainable, and compassionate. So we have this invisible load. Caregiving carries a really invisible weight. It's the emotional labor of anticipating needs before they're spoken. It's the constant vigilance, always watching, always listening, always preparing for what might happen next. It's decision overload, big decisions, small decisions, medical, educational, emotional, often with very little margin for error. Many people tell me, I don't even know why I'm tired. If that resonates, I want you to hear this very clearly. This level of fatigue makes sense when you hear what I have to say tonight. Invisible load isn't just being busy. It's holding information that no one else sees. Knowing which foods might cause that next meltdown, tracking medication schedules in your head, anticipating transitions, scanning our environment for the triggers that might be occurring, replaying conversations long after they end. This is cognitive labor, and cognitive labor is absolutely exhausting. This cognitive labor also comes with limited support. Many families have limited or no support. So when caregivers say, I'm resting, but I'm still tired and exhausted, this is why. So let's talk a little bit about chronic stress and what it actually does neurologically. So I'm going to get a little neuropsychological with you here, but ongoing stress really impacts our focus. It's harder to concentrate or stay organized. It impacts our memory. We might have word finding problems or remembering all the appointments without looking at the busy schedule multiple times a day. Causes emotional dysregulation. You may start to feel more reactive or overwhelmed more easily. Our energy and motivation, everything just feels heavier. And this is not a personal flaw. It's not a lack of resilience. It's a nervous system under sustained demand. And what is actually happening is the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for planning, organizing, decision-making, and emotional regulation, it gets fatigued. At the same time, the amygdala, which is our threat detector, becomes more reactive. Our stress hormones like cortisol stay elevated, executive functioning decreases, compassion fatigue increases. This does not mean you care less. It means, again, your nervous system has been asked to do too much for too long. And when we understand this, the shame begins to lift. So, no pressure on this, no sharing out loud or in the comments, just a quiet check-in with yourself. Think about this question. When was the last time you did something just to support your own nervous system? Let me ask you again. When was the last time you did anything, just something to support your own nervous system? Not for your child, not for your family, not for your job, but just for you. If it was today, amazing, and that is wonderful. If it was yesterday, that counts too. But if you honestly can't remember, you are exactly where you need to be tonight. Before we go further, let's just pause together. I want you to put your feet on the floor. Drop those shoulders. Unclench that jaw. Slow breath through the nose and a longer breath out through your mouth. That long exhale tells your brain, I'm safe. This is regulation. And regulation doesn't require silence, privacy, or perfection. It just requires awareness. So how do we support a caregiver or a busy person's brain? First off, we stop aiming for perfection and we start focusing on protection. Protection of our nervous system, protection of our energy, protection of our sustainability. And getting to the base of some of this, we look at 4 pillars: nutrition, movement, mindset and emotion regulation, rest and recovery. These are not all or nothing strategies, and these aren't everything that we can use. There's a lot of technologies and modalities that we use, but they're just small supports that compound over time that can give us a base that we can then layer on many of the other things that you're actually going to be hearing about throughout this whole week and throughout this summit. These are some of the really basic things that we can do that don't cost us anything, that we can implement on a daily basis. And so when we think about this and we think about nutrition, brain fuel, again, not perfection. Nutrition is about consistency, not complexity. The brain needs steady fuel to regulate mood, energy, and focus. And when fuel is inconsistent, your brain has a harder time with emotion regulation, attention, stress tolerance, patience. This is especially important for caregivers and anyone who is under chronic demand. Decision fatigue is real. When you're making hundreds of decisions a day, your brain will naturally look for shortcuts. This is not about laziness, it's neurobiology. So instead of asking what's the healthiest option, ask what's the most supportive option right now. Supportive means that it's stabilizing, it's sustaining, it's doable, and it's realistic, not perfect. Prioritize protein and fiber is a really great thing to just start with. It helps stabilize our blood sugar. Protein helps with neurotransmitter production, satiety, which basically makes you feel full, and steady energy. And fiber slows down that digestion and prevents rapid blood sugar spikes and crashes, because when we have our blood sugar drops quickly, the nervous system actually interprets it as stress. Blood sugar crashes often feel like anxiety, irritability, brain fog, shakiness, exhaustion, all of these. And many caregivers think that they're burnt out, when part of what they're feeling is simply an underfueled brain. And so using simple options that don't require a lot of planning, because again, we're all busy, right? This is not settling. This is a strategic support. If food requires too much thought, it often doesn't happen at all. So we remove the friction. That might look like repeating the same breakfast every day, keeping protein visible and accessible, eating the same lunch multiple days in a row, pairing protein with whatever is easiest. And we give ourselves permission to let good enough be good enough and not perfect, because consistency beats perfection every single time. A smoothie counts, leftovers count, a protein bar in the car counts. Eating something is often better for the nervous system than waiting for the right thing. Feeding yourself is not selfish. Feeding yourself is nervous system care. And when your nervous system is supported, everything else becomes just a little bit easier. And then we think about movement. This is regulation, not exercise. Well, I do triathlons and I do a lot of working out. That's not what I'm talking about here tonight. Movement is one of the fastest ways to regulate the nervous system, and it does not have to look like exercise. I encourage what's called movement snacks, 30 seconds to 3 minutes, doing calf raises while brushing your teeth, gentle twisting while seated, rocking side to side, while waiting at your child's appointment, doing shoulder rolls, ankle circles under the chair, 5 slow breaths with a long exhale. In the car, shoulder shrugs at the red lights, neck stretches while you're parked, deep breathing before you start the engine. And then with your child, things you can do are wall push-ups together, marching in place for 30 seconds, shaking it out before transitions, reaching arms up to the sky. Because these movements, especially when you do them with your child, help both nervous systems regulate. So earlier, Reanna talked about that co-regulation. This is an example of some of the things we can do with our children as well, because when your child sees you pause, breathe, and move, you're modeling regulation for them, not just self-care. Even small movements tell the brain, I'm not trapped and I'm safe. And then we have mindset. Caregivers and chronically busy people carry a lot of guilt. So we practice something I call caregiver pause. It's just 30 seconds. It's noticing your breath. It's dropping those shoulders again, relaxing that jaw. This brief pause signals safety to your brain. We also work on self-talk, because most of us, to be honest, the way we talk to ourselves, we would not be friends with ourselves, with a person that talked to us the way we might talk to ourselves. So instead of also saying, I should be doing this, I get to do this, or I'm responding to a very demanding situation with the tools I have right now, and I'm doing the best I can. Self-compassion is not self-indulgent. It's a nervous system intervention. That reframe, again, changes how the brain actually processes stress. It's these simple little, just base things that we can do that really do matter. And then we think about rest. Micro rest actually matters. Rest is not optional. It is a biological requirement. But before we talk about sleep, I want to normalize something. Many caregivers tell me, I know sleep is important, but it just feels impossible right now. And if that's you, you are not failing. Sleep struggles are often a nervous system issue, not a discipline issue. Let's talk about why sleep can be so difficult when you live under chronic responsibility. When your nervous system is used to being on alert all day, listening, anticipating, preparing, it doesn't automatically shut off just because your head hits the pillow. Your brain has to learn that nighttime is still a time to stay vigilant. That's what your brain has learned. That can look like difficulty falling asleep, waking in the middle of the night, racing thoughts, light, unfreshing sleep. This is not your body being bad at sleep. This is a nervous system that hasn't felt safe enough to fully downshift yet. So when we talk about sleep-friendly habits, we're not talking about rigid routines or perfect sleep hygiene. We're talking about sending cues of safety to the brain, because the brain falls asleep when it senses predictability and safety, not pressure. So some gentle, realistic, sleep-friendly habits can include dimming the lights in the evening, lowering stimulation one step at a time, repeating the same small wind-down cues each night, reducing decision-making before bed. This might look like the same calming song, the same scent, the same short stretch, the same slow breathing pattern, not because these are magical, but because repetition tells the brain, this is familiar. I can rest. These not only will help you as a caregiver or a busy parent or a busy person, but if you have children, helping them develop these same things help them as well. If your nights are unpredictable or you're woken frequently, your goal is not perfect sleep. Your goal is supporting your nervous system whenever possible. And that brings us to micro rests. Here's something that people don't often realize. The nervous system does not only recover during sleep. It also recovers during brief moments of perceived safety throughout the day. These are called micro rests. Micro rests are really short, often 10 to 60 seconds, but they have really, really powerful impact on stress hormones and brain regulation. They work because they interrupt the constant on signal. When you take a micro rest, cortisol begins to decrease. We're talking 10 to 60 seconds. We can all do this. The vagus nerve is stimulated. The parasympathetic nervous system is activated, and the brain gets a signal that danger has passed, even briefly. And when these moments happen over and over again throughout the day, they add up. They reduce overall nervous system load. They make sleep easier later because your system is not trying to recover from a full day of unrelenting stress. Micro rests do not require lying down, closing your eyes, silence, being alone. They can happen in real life. Example again is one slow breath with a longer exhale, dropping your shoulders intentionally, unclenching that jaw, pressing your feet into the floor, leaning back in a chair for 10 seconds, placing your hand on your chest, even saying silently, I'm safe right now. I am safe right now. That sentence alone can change nervous system signaling. So why does micro rest help sleep later? Well, if you think of your nervous system like a battery, if it's completely drained all day, sleep becomes harder, not easier. Micro rests prevent total depletion. They create small deposits of regulation. So when bedtime comes, your brain doesn't feel like it has to recover everything at once. This is why caregivers who use these micro rests often report falling asleep faster, fewer racing thoughts, deeper sleep when they do sleep, and less exhaustion overall. Not because their life changed, but because their nervous system got more support. I want to say this clearly. If sleep is hard right now, you are not broken. Your body is doing exactly what it learned to do to protect you. And every micro rest you take is teaching it something new. That safety can exist in small amounts. That rest doesn't have to be all or nothing. So instead of asking, how do I sleep perfectly? Try asking, how can I give my nervous system more moments of safety today? Because these moments quietly, gently build a foundation for better rest later. Caregivers don't struggle with discipline. I want to say this clearly. Caregivers do not struggle with their discipline. You show up, you follow through, you problem solve, even when exhausted. You problem solve every day, all day long. What caregivers struggle with is that the systems don't fit their lives. Most wellness advice assumes you have time, energy, and flexibility. Caregivers and busy adults often have none of these. So the traditional goals fail, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because the system was never built for you. That is why these micro habits, 1-minute actions, tiny repeatable steps, such as if the goal is hydration, 1 sip of water every time you check your phone. If the goal is movement, stand and stretch during one transition. If the goal is mindset, 1 compassionate sentence during a hard moment. If the goal is rest, 1 slow breath before responding to anyone. We also use habit stacking. So if we think about habit stacking, it's something that you already do. That's a habit, like brushing your teeth. And then you stack another new habit on top of it. So doing a stretch while brushing your teeth. Breathe while your child logs into an appointment. Rolling your shoulders every time you get into the car. When habits feel doable, they stick. And when they stick, they quietly protect your nervous system over time. And you start finding kind of that weekly rhythm. So here's your roadmap that I really want all of you to think about. Is setting up 1 micro goal in each area. 1 for nutrition, movement, mindset, rest. Not all at once, not perfectly, just consistently, and really think about what those are. The other thing that is really important is community is medicine. And I love this community that Tanya is already putting together here. The community is medicine. When we build a community around us, it's a connection, and connection lowers cortisol, which is our stress hormone. It increases resilience. It reduces isolation. Your nervous system was never meant to do this alone. Support is not weakness. It's a resource. And so looking at where can we build in those community supports? How can we build those within our lives, within our, all of the different people? There's a lot of people out there that we can connect with. It's finding those that are your people. So let's take a pause together. Let's do a 60-second reset. Probably won't even be 60 seconds at this point. Just take a slow inhale through your nose. And then a long exhale through your mouth. Drop those shoulders. Unclench that jaw. What you just felt was regulation. This is what regulation feels like. It can be an amazing thing. And if you think about just doing that several times throughout the day, you will notice how much difference that makes in your overall well-being. And again, there's a lot of things that we can do. I agree wholeheartedly with Reanna about, therapy can be very, very helpful. Many caregivers also have early trauma that they probably have experienced, and just the trauma and grief about not maybe having the child you expected to have, having a child that you expected, was going to be, a neurotypical child, and you have a child with some disability. There's a grief process to go through around that. And so really looking at those things can be really, really important. But what I'm talking about today are some very simple, just stuff that can give you a really good base every single day that you can just start very slowly and start implementing. And then we can look at other things to add on to that. I use a lot of different technologies, a lot of different, evidence-based practices above and beyond these. But these are some simple things I wanted to share to give you some simple takeaway things that you can really take from here. So before I close, I really invite you to reflect on this. One small shift I can make this week is ... So again, think to yourself, one small shift I can make this week is. And I encourage you to write it down. Write that down. Really put some thought into it. What's one small thing you can do this week to really help with your nervous system regulation? Write it down. Small steps do create sustainable change. I really want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for the care you give every single day to others and to yourself. And most of all, remember, you are not broken. You are not broken. You are responding to sustained demand, and you are worthy of care too. And there's all the contact information that you can get a hold of me at. I actually have been in Billings, Montana for the last almost 30 years. And this June, just recently moved to Minnesota to be closer to my mother. And still doing all this work, but Montana is in my heart. The MonDak area has been one of my most favorite areas to work with in all my years. And I do tons of stuff virtually. I also get up there every now and then as well. So, but I would love to, have anybody reach out that either yourself or of some people that, oh, hey, Mom. My mom actually is on here. So yes, I moved home to be closer to my mom, which I got to go back this weekend. So yes. So if you just want to do a check-in, we can do that as well. I just really, truly appreciate this opportunity. Tanya, you have put so much effort into this summit. I just really appreciate you doing this, and I hope to be involved in all of them. And I have started a nonprofit, so I have some experience with that and would love to talk with you about that as well, because I think it fits exactly with where I like to do as well, because there are so many families that I work with that don't necessarily have some of those financial resources to really do some things to take care of themselves. And if we can give back and give those things and provide some of those resources for people, I would love to be part of any of that as well.
That would be amazing. Yes, I'm one that is all full of big ideas and forward momentum. I am not afraid to jump in and make mistakes and learn as I go. So I could use some advice. I thank you so much for being here. Does anybody in the comments have anything for Brenda? Brenda has offered to give up. We're going to throw them all in. What I'm going to do with these prizes is, so Brenda's offered a couple of sessions while we're drawing through. I think what I'm going to do is wait till the end of the week before I disperse anything. And like with your sessions, and I think a couple other people were doing that, I'll kind of have a list. And then if that meshes with somebody and they want to pick a session with you as part of their prize, or somebody else, I think that's kind of how I'll handle that. And then so I'll put them in touch with you.
That sounds amazing.
That would
I also have some things, Tanya, that I can send that have all of this kind of in a bunch of little guides on all of the different areas that we could email out to everyone who registered.
Let's
so they're
do
just
that.
They're just PDFs. Yes. And so we can get that sent out to everyone as well.
Yeah, let's do that. I don't see, I'm glancing through. Do you see any other questions from anyone?
Don't see anything else there.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
This was amazing. I think I don't really LinkedIn much. I think you're the only person I follow on there. I get notifications from your posts. So if you guys like LinkedIn, Brenda's got good posts over there.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And what time is it? It is. We'll take a short intermission. I'm going to put on that little video, and we'll be back at 7:15. Thanks, everybody. right, it is 7:15. I gotta say, I'm pretty proud that we're just keeping on time, just going right through this. That is awesome. So this to close it out, you just get me, good old Nurse Tanya. My little talk that I want to bring up tonight is kind of for the men of the Bakken. So if you have a spouse that is near, that is willing to listen, grab them. If not, you can always try to hit them up on the replay, right? I just appreciate the men of the Bakken so much. At Awaken Wellness, I enjoy the male clientele that comes in. They're curious, they know what's going on, and in this wellness conversation, so many times I just feel like they kind of get left out, right? They get left behind. At least they do in the circles that I run in. It's you think of wellness, and everybody gears it to menopause, or to just women in general. So the MonDak Summit, I really want to include them in the talk, right? So let me get my little screen share going here. What's really fun is some of the men in the that come into the store, like, honestly, a lot of the fun retail items that I have at Awaken Wellness, if you've never been there before, it's just anybody can walk in off the street. We carry healthier options, homeopathy, you name it. But a lot of the fun stuff that I have is because of my guys that walk in and they listen to podcasts, they listen to Joe Rogan or this and that. And the other thing, and they're like, hey, do you have this? And sometimes I don't even know what they're talking about. So they keep me more on top of what's trending on TikTok and podcasts and whatever else, like neurogum for one was one of the things, and like methylene blue, mushrooms, they like the lion's mane mushrooms. So it's just really, I really want to include them in the conversation. So whether it's on the replay or I given you enough time to gather up that hardworking MonDak man in your life, I want to include them, want them to know that they are not left out of the conversation, and they are really appreciated. They work hard, they show up. Now I better get to my notes. I have a habit of just, taking off. You make all these notes and then I just start talking. So anyway, the men who do show up at my store or who may catch this live or on the replay is absolutely not by accident. It's because they are paying attention. Every day they work hard, they show up. Maybe they've got energy issues like the rest of us. Their sleep is off, recovery is off, their gut sometimes just doesn't feel right. They don't get to eat just whatever they want to anymore. Again, like we've said all throughout tonight, that doesn't mean that we're broken. These symptoms are our body communicating with us, like a toddler without words, right? Or a child just putting words together. Symptoms, we're not broken. Your body's just trying to get your attention. It's just trying to have a conversation, just to bring awareness. And anything we do, awareness is leadership. So whether it's oil field, farm, ranch, welders, mechanics, men who work 12, 14 hours outside in real conditions with real exposures, they still show up for their families every night. They love the land, they respect their work, and they take pride in providing. So this conversation is for men who intend to stay strong inside that life that they have chosen. One thing I deeply respect about this place is that we understand trade-offs here in the MonDak, right? We don't live in a big, fancy fantasy life. We live in day to day reality. We choose wide open spaces. We accept long drives. Some of us, like us over here in Sydney, Montana, it might take close to 45 minutes just to get to Walmart. And there is no such thing as overnight shipping. I don't care how much they charge you. Overnight shipping, at least here in my area, maybe Williston or Minot, you can get overnight shipping. But here, I don't care what they charge you. It's not really going to get there overnight. We choose commercial farming practices so the farm survives. We choose pipelines so the energy keeps moving. We understand that subsidies aren't perfect, but they put food on our tables. And that's not ignorance. That is grown up decision making. That is America. That is the MonDak. And we get it. Trade offs don't mean sacrifice without solutions, they mean awareness. Take when COVID hit. It didn't break us. It didn't shut us down. It didn't turn us into rioting idiots. What it did was remind us that everybody needs help sometimes, and we share, we're stronger. Health and health systems and health communities work the same way. We don't live in perfect conditions here. We never have, we never will. We can't expect to, but we adapt. We help each other. We move forward. Like our culture is different. It is rugged. It kind of reminds me of I mean, just stick with me on this, but back when I was young, there was the yo mama jokes, right? Yo mama, this, whatever. Like you could we can make fun of our own thing and tease in our own heart space, but we don't want to hear anybody else disrespect your mom, right? That's how it is in the MonDak, right? We we can say all of the jokes about the weather, about this. Why do we live here when you can't breathe the air in the winter, or why do we live in places that freeze our face? So like we all get that, but we do still love it, and we know what the trade off is raising our families here in these wide open spaces. So the reality is now, some of this, what I'm gonna say, I don't know how to say it. I don't mean it in judgment and I don't mean it in criticism. I just mean it as part of our ownership. We can talk all day about toxins and chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and chemtrails, but yet we still need those things to make our farming practices work, right? We know that California has no longer got glyphosate or Roundup, but we know that we don't want to be tree hugging Californians, or we know what the other side of Montana is turned into, right? So here in the MonDak, we're this really individual breed that even when we know these truths, we have to choose what we can control. We have to choose what we can react to. We have to live within our means, so to speak. I want to introduce to you, probably throughout this talk and on, like a few tools that we use at Awaken Wellness to help mitigate life's daily toxins living here in the MonDak, which may be less toxic than living in the city with the people and the pollutants, but not to say that we don't have some of our own, right? Once you know something, you just kind of can't unknow it. That's the position that I'm at. That's where I help a lot of people who walk in our door at Awaken Wellness who are getting awakened to these things, to these big potential problems, but we have to still stay mentally in balance. We have to know which battles we can choose. We have to know what tools we have to fight these things, to mitigate these things. So once you start knowing things, you start noticing how food hits you different. Maybe how sleep changes, how stress lands differently. And you don't need someone yelling at you. You don't need me yelling at you. We just all could possibly start making smarter choices, making different choices. Digestion is a great place to start. Let's see, that digestion belly. Like if you're talking in men language, they're probably not going to say my digestion is off, but they might feel tired mid afternoon, or like you have to really, really force yourself to go back to work after lunch. They might think their gut feels tight, or they just aren't getting good deep sleep. They're sleeping, but they're waking up feeling like they're not refreshed. Maybe they're grouchier than they used to be. And maybe they've got that kind of beer belly that doesn't want to budge. A lot of that, let's say, isn't bad. Let's call it bloat. And a few things I want to just throw out that we can possibly do to mitigate these things without having to do a whole lot. We know that stress lowers stomach acid. We know that alcohol lowers stomach acid. We know that eating fast lowers stomach acid. So when stomach acid drops, those microbes that belong in the large intestine, they move to the small intestine. A fancy word for that you may have heard before is SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And the way I explain that is like not fancy or scientific, it's like hoses. So your large intestine is a not quite very flexible hose, and it's not like a soaker hose. It's more rigid. That's where your microbes and your fermenting, your digestion is supposed to happen. That small intestine is a more balloon type hose. And so it's got that expansion and contraction, and your food really should not ferment there. But when it does, because of low stomach acid or other microbial imbalances, I'm just really putting this simply, but that creeps up there. So then your microbes, when you are eating, especially foods sometimes like raw vegetables, onions, garlic, that fermenting starts to happen in a place it was never meant to happen. And that's where you get that bloat. So what's a simple thing that you can start, that you can do something about it? I may have gotten ahead of my slides here. Let me see. I did. Hold on. I'll give you that solution in just a minute. Now, myself, I tend to lean more to the carnivore side of eating. And in all honesty, in my advanced education in wellness and alternative stuff, most of my mentors, most of the classes that I've taken, they're not vegetarians. So honestly, I probably would have quit a long time ago if somebody was trying to talk me into being a vegetarian. In fact, especially males, I can't think of one person that I personally know that is a male and a vegetarian. So rest assured, I'm not about to start on a soapbox about getting anybody off animal meat. That's not what we're talking about here. However, steak or animal meat is super dense. And it has to be first broken down by stomach acid in the stomach, or it is really just slowing down your digestion and literally going down the toilet. So it's not really about what you eat per se, not right here in this few minutes. It's more about how you eat And are you able to digest what you're eating? So, of course, we know that you have to mechanically chew things. Um, but yet we don't. We take big hurried bites. So if you get anything, just a reminder to slow down and eat. Your digestion starts in your mouth. It starts with the smelling. Your digestive enzymes start in your saliva. So just slowing down. See, again, I'm getting ahead of my notes. Processed meats can be super dangerous. Combining nitrates, especially with beer, with yeast, um, and alcohol, your microbial balance, it can just really be a recipe for disaster. Now, I'm not trying to come up with scare tactics, or anything like that, but something to really think about. So, eat all the meat you want, but I would challenge you to find nitrate free meat. When your body pairs overgrowth of candida or overgrowth of yeast, and your microbes are kind of got a little imbalance going there. Other ways that you can see things like that show up is in your skin. If you've got rashy, if you've got yeasty type issues on your skin or other places, these are things that we do want to try to clean up. We want to make better choices. The colon, it's just so important, especially again when we're eating more meat. We can get super acidic in the colon. So we need to be digesting the best that we can. The body doesn't like to be too acidic. So one thing that's really easy to start implementing right away is your good old apple cider vinegar before you eat, or like fire cider is great. A lot of people make their own fire cider. We make it at Awaken Wellness in the fall, but don't drink that apple cider vinegar by itself. Put it in a shot glass and do like a third apple cider vinegar and a third water. Do that before you eat, especially that high protein meal. So you get that better digestion. So it starts breaking down right away. If you are completely just averted, you can't do vinegar, then a good digestive enzyme goes a long way. The Don't think of it about another pill that you have to take or something that you have to do. Especially when you spent good money on a steak, you want your body to be able to use those amino acids, to use those building blocks. You want that food to be your medicine, not just to be wasted on the other side of the toilet, right? So I know it can be hard. Apple cider vinegar, it's tough for me too. I, for the most part, would rather take the digestive enzyme. I think my next picture is just of fire cider. So fire cider is um, a super healthy antioxidant drink, but also is a vinegar base. Another way that you can get some vinegar going is if you use a good amount of vinegar salad dressing before you eat. Another thing I would like to challenge you to maybe do a little bit different is removing the ice cold liquid from in front of you when you're eating, and especially ice cold carbonated liquid. That really, really disrupts your digestion. That carbonation, the cold, it kind of paralyzes the stomach, and it does exactly the opposite of what we want. So getting yourself to drink even warm water with lemon, if you can't do the vinegar, would be an absolute place to start. Vinegar, I get it. It can be hard. And then just slow down. Man-sized bites are not helping you out. Just small bites, chew slowly, enjoy your food. Let those digestive enzymes work for you. And it just matters. Timing of how you're eating really matters. Now, this is something that I get that it's difficult. It's difficult in our house too when you are outside and you're working until the sun goes down. Then you come in and maybe you only ate that one meal a day, and now it's this big old protein meal, and you go to bed with a full stomach. When we do that, your stomach doesn't get to rest. Your liver at about 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, that's when your liver wants to cycle and cleanse, and that can't really happen like it's supposed to when your stomach is full as well. So then you kind of have that, oh, I just didn't sleep very good. You wake up feeling not rested, and it's because your body didn't get to rest. It was busy trying to digest that heavy meal all night. So a challenge would be, it's a challenge for me. I'm still trying to get myself more in that mindset. My husband has always been great about getting up and making himself some protein and making himself breakfast in the morning. For me, it's, if I can get a shake in, that's about as far as I can get. I just don't have that appetite in the morning. But my health needs me to. My health is requiring me to make that change. So eat like a king in the morning. And if you can, fast 6 hours. 2 meals a day is great. Men can really do well on the 1 meal a day program as well. Men fasting, doing 1 meal a day with good stomach acid and good protein will actually boost your testosterone. Men, the more you can starve out that sugar and cut back sugar, the better your body will convert your testosterone to your good metabolites, to your DHT. Men, if you've got some liver congestion, you're eating sugar, your body's going to metabolize that testosterone over to the estrogen side instead of testosterone. So I just kind of blooped that all together. But digestion, eating less at night. Try to go to bed 2 hours on an empty stomach. That is one shift. Getting the sugar out. So again, less carbs, more carnivore, and doing some liver cleansing, some liver work, removing the alcohol, giving your liver a rest, are all things that you can do to naturally increase your testosterone. If you're going to do a little bit of morning warm-up activity, light exercise, the morning as well is the best time to do that to enhance your overall composition. Making sure you stay hydrated, making sure you have enough minerals during the day. Let's see, I'm trying to look back at my notes. I really got myself all off track. Imagine that. But really, really important, those two couple of things. And I know for outdoor families, it's super hard not to go to bed on a full stomach. But if you can figure it out, at least in the winter, you can play with it and see if what I'm saying rings true for your body. Now, every body is different, so this may be your absolute truth, and it may not make any difference to you. And it also may depend on your age. We have to be wise enough to know that as the years progress, what worked for us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even last year might not still work today. We have to revisit these things. A couple of my favorite tools, I will see. I'm going to kind of skip forward here a little bit. When we're talking about digestion, when we're talking about that bloated stomach, one of my favorite companies is called Cellcore Biosciences, and they make a product called Para 2. It is amazing, especially for men. It just takes that tire in that midsection and completely deflates it. And it is that bacteria in that small intestine. Sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes it takes a couple rounds of it, but they will get such amazing results. Okay, sleep, we talked about sleep affecting testosterone. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about toxins and the things that we are just exposed to on a daily basis. I would rather see anybody play some defense and stay on top of your labs, get some yearly labs done, than being forced to play offense when disease progression shows up. Now, labs aren't like fear tactics and they aren't the end all be all, but they do, it is just intelligence. It helps us keep track of things. One of my favorite tests is, I don't have a picture to bring up, but it is a urine toxicity test from Designs for from Vibrant Wellness. You only have to send in a urine sample, and it will tell you what is going on with your toxic burden. It'll tell you from environmental exposures like glyphosate, your herbicides, your pesticides. It'll tell you plastics, things that we may pick up from what we're eating, heavy metals, molds, all sorts of things. And when we get that test back, sometimes it will not look too bad. And sometimes that's because those toxins are still in our fat and in our tissues. And if we start the detox process, and they can look worse in 3 months because we're loosening those out of the tissues. But that is a really good baseline, especially if you, when I just think of our guys down in the welding shop and breathing those toxic fumes into their lungs, and the chemicals that we work with and all these things. We know that we're not going to stop doing those things, but there are things that we can do to mitigate it. And keeping up with some liver work, like if you are your age, a person your age, and you've never intentionally like done a liver cleanse or done some cellular level detox, you're like a vehicle your age that's never had an oil change. Like these are just things that are super important, especially when I'm talking to a crowd of men. You probably cringe when I say that. You are a vehicle your age that has never had an oil change. Like that's a big deal. And where your oil is your bile. Your bile is made in your liver, and it gets recirculated throughout your colon like the oil in your vehicle. And it gets, especially if you're constipated, it's even worse, but it gets sluggish and thick, and those toxins just keep recirculating. It takes a lot of energy for the liver to make bile. So it makes very little and it reuses, it keeps recirculating. So that, and even with hormones, if the liver itself is what makes your hormones, they have to methylate, they have to convert. All of the toxins in you have to convert. They have to get through different stages of methylation and out of the body. And that's the same with your hormones. Your liver decides if your testosterone is going to turn to the metabolites or if it's going to turn to estrogen. Same in both species, men and women. We have got to we have to help our livers out. We have to understand that, not that anybody can't have a drink every now and then or a few beers, but when we live on a few beers a day and we live in a toxic lifestyle, we live on a toxic planet, we live in toxic work areas, those toxins, your body can't do everything. So the instant that alcohol comes in, your body drops everything to process, to detox that alcohol, that process. So for that day, in that minute, when that's going on, everything else you breathed in that day, everything you put on your skin that day, everything you ingested through your food that day, your liver couldn't do it all. So it had to store those toxins. Your body likes to store toxins in the liver. It really, fatty liver, you've heard of that. That is not help. Toxins do not help that. And it stores fat in your fat cells. Your body will hide those toxins away to protect you. If it can't get them out through your bile, through the colon, through the liver in that fashion that it would prefer, then it's going to store them in your soft tissue, right? So all of these things count. It just counts. I highly encourage everybody who's hearing my voice to do these little things, to be mindful. Quality water, quality sleep, all of those little things, and just to make better choices, make the best choices that you can, and try not to have to play offense. That's the hardest part, I think, for any of us, our friends, our families, everybody, is when the offensive strategy has to kick in. That's when it is just it's just tough. So we're all here. Everybody on this Zoom has got something that they bring to the table, and I just so appreciate. I can't say enough. The MonDak is just such a tough, rugged. We weather the weather, we weather the finances, the changes in our economy, the changes in our farming practice. When, in our little economy, when the sugar beet plant closes and everybody's going to have to reimagine, what do they do with the equipment in their Quonset? What do they, they're reimagining things. The stressors are so real. And I just appreciate so much that masculine force in our area. They don't get enough credit. They just really don't. Let me get back to my notes. Let's see. I'm going to start to wrap this up. Right now, I feel like I'm talking to the blind because I can't see the comments or anything else. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, check out the comments, and see if there's any questions for me as I start to wrap this up. Let's see. Yeah, eating slower, Jessica. It is like, oh gosh, we just get into such hurries. Everything is such a hurry. So I don't know about you, but more than likely it was women here. So just really, really shine on your MonDak man, and in appreciation and for all that they do and the stress that they carry for all of us, and their health. They do care. sometimes the majority, they don't really act like they care or like they're listening, but they do follow directions. So we lead, we direct, and they are willing to listen to our research, right? What we hear on things like this, and we take it home to them. So tonight has been amazing. We had fabulous speakers, and we've got more nights of this coming up. So I don't know. I'm just humble and I'm pleased. And I always have a hard time wrapping up at the end. So one more time, looking through comments. Oh yeah, Leona, that is such a good rule, to put your fork down between bites. It really is. And I don't know if any of you follow Barbara O'Neill, but she's really big on the 2 meals a day and 6 hours in between, and to eat dry. So no liquid at all, 30 minutes before or after your meal. And the reasoning for that is because the just drinking waters down your stomach acid. So I know that goes against the grain of a lot of general medicine, right? Everybody's on a proton pump inhibitor. Everybody thinks they have heartburn because they have too much stomach acid. When I've learned through my own health journey that is so wrong. Yes, you can have too much stomach acid at certain times, but when that is happening, you have to ask why. What is the trigger? Your body, the Lord designed us to require stomach acid, not Prilosec, not omeprazole, not Tums or Rolaids. So if we are having digestive issues, we have to find that root cause. We have to look for the why. A lot of times I will ask people just to avoid dairy, avoid gluten, avoid sugar, and a few other things, which nobody likes to hear, but it does, when you stop doing those things for a while, then you can start hearing what your body wants again. And that's where food allergy testing is so valuable. Now, I say allergy, but a medical provider is not going to call it that. They're going to call it a sensitivity. They're going to say that it doesn't matter. It's a sensitivity, that there's nothing you can do about it. And that's not true. I'll use one of my triggers. Black pepper is a huge trigger for me. I had most of my adult life, I was on a proton pump inhibitor. I had just insufferable heartburn. And I actually had to have a transfusion at one point because I just had micro bleeds and had heartburn all the time. I was on Protonics, which is stronger, 40 milligrams, and would still have breakthrough heartburn. Well, I was a nurse, I was just living a stressful single mom life, eating the normal American diet and drinking a lot of Diet Coke. And like I had gotten so anemic that I ate ice all the time. And I had gotten myself off the proton pump inhibitor before I became wellness minded. But I have a hiatal hernia, so I've got an awesome, if you live in the MonDak, I've got an awesome reference for you of a body worker. When my hiatal hernia is activated, she can push it back down. And dairy will activate that thing. So having to figure out what my body doesn't like, dairy, black pepper, will activate that heartburn. So when that's the case, when there is too much acid, it's because my body is trying to break down that irritant. It's trying to break down that black pepper. It's trying to deal with the dairy that I don't have the right enzymes to digest. So why? If you're having heartburn all the time, you have to figure out why. There's something that you can do about it. And living on proton pump inhibitors is dangerous. It is dangerous. It wrecks your everything downstream. Things don't work right when there's no stomach acid. Stomach acid, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on this, but somebody needs to hear it. When you don't have stomach acid, this is how I describe it. It's like walking around without skin, right? It's like walking around without skin. So if I had a big gaping wound on my arm, and my body should heal it if I don't get dirt into it, if I don't get, yucky stuff into it. That skin protects me. Your stomach acid is your first line of defense from whatever goes in your mouth to the rest of your body. So you have to have stomach acid. Food sensitivity testing is priceless if you don't want to do the elimination. Like if you like, you know, like sometimes people have to get down to where for a couple of weeks they're only eating a few foods and then start adding things back in one at a time to see what those triggers are. And you can absolutely do that, or you can do the food allergy testing. And another thing, if you have got heartburn, if you can't get off a proton pump inhibitor, you do have to do it slow. Cold turkeying it is not a fun process at all. But, and I'm not technically giving you medical advice. That stuff is supposed to be over the counter. And if you read the back of it, it says not to use it for longer than 2 weeks. So even the people who make the drug know you should not live on it. But I'm here to try to help you sort these things out. It is not easy. Carbonation is a big one that you should look at getting off of. And everything that I said tonight, warm liquids before you eat, lemon juice if you can't do apple cider vinegar, all those things. It's just a big deal. It really is. If you have been like I was and without stomach acid for all those years, then I got autoimmune disease and I got visibly full of parasites. And if you'd like more information on that, you can check out my TikTok videos and whatnot. But that's how my platform, Awaken Wellness, came to be. Like everybody who will be presenting in this summit, we are a product of our own healing journey. We are our own stories, and that's what we tend to be the most passionate about. Let's see, looks like there's a couple of comments. Diana, hi Diana, I'm so glad you're here. Says no vinegar. What's a good digestive enzyme? So there are so many out there. Diana, you're familiar with Cellcore products. They've got a great one called CT Zyme, or Designs for Health. You're familiar with those as well. And theirs, I think, is just called Digest Zyme. And Designs for Health does have some butane in it, so it's got the extra acid. Pam San, my mama, says, thank you. It was great. Oh, you hear static in the background. I think it's my computer. It gets hot. Yes, Linda, I do food allergy testing, and you don't even have to come see me for that. If you go on my website under the lab testing tab, then go to all the way down to Vibrant Wellness, and there's a food allergy testing there. What I like about that one, if you do the complete one, which I would recommend, the complete food allergy testing also tests for non-food ingredients, so like chemicals. It tests for like MSG, and it tests for food dye. It tests for like some other rogue things. Like I still will occasionally, but those bubbler drinks, I knew that they were kind of Russian roulette. Sometimes they would really freak my stomach out. And when I got that new food allergy test back, there is a ingredient, one of those long ingredients that you can't pronounce in those bubbler drinks that my body doesn't like. And another cool thing about that food allergy test is it does IgG, which is just your stomach immune system, and it does IgA is the stomach immune system. And we know that your stomach is your immune system. And then it also does IgG, which is just inflammatory throughout the whole body. It could look like a runny nose. It could look like headaches. It could look like skin irritation or heartburn. So that is a really cool test. I want to quick do the last drawing while everybody's here. Let me hit the button. It takes a minute. And Diana DiGiulio is the last winner for the night. So what I'm doing, everybody, if you didn't catch that before, after each presentation, I'm doing a drawing, but I'm going to hold the rewards until the end of the summit, and I'll contact you by email. And some people like Diana, she definitely can't stop it. She can't make it. She's in California. Thank you so much for being here. But I will by then I'll have gathered up everything that the presenters are going to kick in. So I'll get a hold of you and kind of let you know what your little bonus options are, or what you can pick from when you're a winner. So thanks everybody, and I hope to see you back tomorrow night.